Hello students, I hope you all are fine at your home. In our last session, we started our chapter Indigo from our Flamingo book. Now we will just proceed the chapter again and we will start it. It is on page number 48 from our NCERT book. Most of the arable land in the Champaran district was divided into large estates owned by Englishmen and worked by Indian tenants. The chief commercial crop was indigo. The landlords compelled all tenants to plant 3/20th of or 15% of their holdings with indigo and surrender the entire indigo harvest as rent. This was done by long-term contract. Now, the sharecropping policy that was going on in Champaran, Bihar, it is just described here. What was that? Arable. Arable means fertile land. Arable means fertile land where the crops can be grown. So most of the land, the fertile land in Champaran, it was confiscated or owned by Englishmen, and the tenants, the farmers, they were supposed to grow indigo in the 15% of that land, and that commercial crop, commercial means for business purpose, that commercial crop is to be given to Britishers as rent. Tenants means peasants. So this was the custom that was going for the from long years or for many years. Presently, the landlords learned that Germany had developed synthetic indigo. Then a news came to them that Germany, they have developed or they had developed or they had produced that synthetic indigo. Synthetic means the artificial. Synthetic means artificial. So, Germany, they had developed or they had produced synthetic indigo. That was a news for them. Thereupon obtained agreements from the sharecroppers to pay them compensation for being released from that 15% arrangement. Now, a new policy was introduced by the Britishers to those tenants, and they were supposed to give compensation if they wanted to get released from that 15% policy, indigo sharecropping. So this was the new custom that they have introduced to them. The sharecropping arrangement was irksome to the peasants and many signed willingly. Irksome means troublesome, which create problem. Irksome, troublesome. So now the new policy, it was irksome for many peasants, but few of them, they signed that agreement willingly. Now those who resisted, those who retaliated for that, resistance means retaliated or protested. To go against means. So those who resisted engaged lawyers, the landlords hired thugs. Now, those peasants who were not willing to sign that agreement, they hired lawyers to fire, just to go for a case against them. Then, and for that, what the landlords they have done, they hired thugs. Thugs, one who forcefully grab a thing from someone. Then, meanwhile, the information about synthetic indigo reached the illiterate peasants who had signed and they wanted their money back. Now, that was fiery news for everyone. And then those illiterate peasants, they also came to know about the synthetic indigo, that now they need not to produce or they need not to grow that indigo crop, because somehow that crop, it infertile the land. The fertility of land becomes less, very less by producing that crop. That's why it was painful for them. At this point, Gandhiji arrived in Champaran. Now, when that news came to those illiterate peasants, at the same time Gandhiji arrived in Champaran, he began by trying to get the facts. Now, he started collecting the facts. First, he visited the secretary of the British Landlord Association. The secretary told him that they could give no information to an outsider. Gandhiji answered that he was no outsider. So, Gandhiji, when he started just collecting those information, at that time he visited a British Landlord Association, and that officer, he denied to give that information by calling Gandhiji an outsider. That was very painful for Gandhiji, and then he forcefully said that I'm not an outsider, I am an Indian, so this is my place too. Next, Gandhiji called on the British official commissioner of the Tirhut division, in which the Champaran district lay. Now, it is a place in the Bihar state, or that Champaran district. The commissioner, Gandhiji reports, proceeded to bully me and advised me forthwith to leave Tirhut. Now, Gandhiji, he was telling the story to Louis Fisher. So, he told him that when British official commissioner called Gandhiji and he told him, bully means to make fun or to laugh at someone. Then Gandhiji told that to Louis Fisher that commissioner, he tried to make fun of Gandhiji and told him to leave Tirhut, that area. Gandhiji did not leave. He was not ready to go. Instead, he proceeded to Motihari, the capital of Champaran. After that, Gandhiji left for Motihari. It is also it is the capital of Champaran. Several lawyers accompanied him. At the railway station, a vast multitude greeted Gandhiji. When Gandhiji reached Motihari, at that time, lots of people were there at the station just to welcome him. He went to a house and, using it as headquarters, continued his investigation. Then he took shelter in a home, and from there he started investigating all the cases. A report came in that a peasant had been maltreated in a nearby village. Maltreated, misbehaved. Maltreated, misbehaved. So there he came to know that a sharecropper or a tenant or a peasant, he was maltreated or misbehaved in a nearby village. Gandhiji decided to go and see him. The next morning, he started out on the back of an elephant. He had not proceeded far when the police superintendent messengers overtook him and ordered him to return to his own town in his carriage. So when he was leaving for that nearby village on an elephant, then one of the messenger came in front of him and told him to go back to his town in the same carriage. Gandhiji complied. The messenger drove Gandhi home, where he served him with an official notice to quit Champaran immediately. Then when Gandhiji he went there, and that messenger, he gave him a notice written by the official. And what was written in that notice? It was written that Gandhiji had to leave Champaran immediately. Gandhiji signed a receipt for that notice and wrote on it that he would disobey the order. So he received that notice and gave a receipt, and on that receipt he wrote that he is not going to obey this notice, he is disobeying it. In consequence, Gandhiji received a summons to appear in court the next day. So when that officer got that some notice back, and it was written that he is not going to obey that that verdict, or you can say that whatever is written on that, to leave Motihari or leave Champaran immediately. On that note, he received a summon. A summon is a legal notice to call. Then he received a summon that he had to appear in court the next day. All night Gandhiji remained awake. Gandhiji was thinking, uh, he remained awake at that night. He telegraphed Rajendra Prasad to come from Bihar with influential friends. He sent instruction to the ashram. He wired a full report to the viceroy. So that night he was thinking and he telegraphed to Rajendra Prasad that he had to come there with all those influential people, those who were a renowned person in that area, and who were fighting case against those Britishers for those peasants. And he sent instruction to the ashram also, and he wired a full report to the viceroy. Morning found the town of Motihari black with peasant. For that, the whole Motihari, it was covered with people. They did not know Gandhiji's record in South Africa. They had merely heard that a Mahatma who wanted to help them was in trouble with the authorities. Lots of people, they were not aware about Gandhiji's act in South Africa. What they knew that a person named Mahatma was there who was there to fight for their freedom, or who was there to fight against all those exploitation that was created by Britishers. Then their spontaneous demonstration in thousand around the courthouse was the beginning of their liberation from fear of the British. That gathering was indicating that the liberation of fear for them is going to start. The officials felt powerless without Gandhiji's cooperation. He helped them regulate the crowd. He was polite and friendly. He was giving them concrete proof that their might, hitherto dreaded and unquestioned, could be challenged by Indians. Now, the officials, the police person, they were feeling helpless when such crowd was approaching to the courthouse, and in that case, Mahatma Gandhiji helped all those officials to regulate the crowd, and he was very kind and gentle during the proceedings, and it showed that a revolution had started. The government was baffled. The prosecutor requested the judge to postpone the trial. Apparently, the authorities wished to consult their superiors. Now, after looking at that much crowd, the government, they were shocked too, and the prosecutor, the government, or you can say the public prosecutor, he requested the judge to postpone the case as the authorities wished to consult their superiors for that. Gandhiji protested against the delay. He read a statement, pleaded guilty. He was involved. He told the court in a conflict of duties. On the one hand, not to set a bad example as a lawbreaker. On the other hand, to render the humanitarian and national service for which he had come. Now it was getting delayed. Mahatma Gandhiji protested for that. Then he read a statement pleading guilty, and he said that there is a conflicting of duties. What was the conflict? The conflict was that first, he didn't want to set an example that he is disobeying the law. Second thing is that he did not want to be he did not want to set an example that he is not going to help the people on humanitarian grounds. Then he disregarded the order to leave, not for want of respect for lawful authority, but in obedience to take the higher law of our being, the voice of conscience. He asked the penalty due. Then what he did, he said that he disobeyed the law because he wanted to help the people on humanitarian basis. He wanted to help the people for the honor with the voice of conscience act, as it was totally revealed that he was not there to disobey or to go against the authorities, but he did that because he wanted to help those people. The magistrate announced that he would pronounce sentence after a 2-hour recess. After that, the magistrate told all the people that he is going to give the verdict after 2.5 years, 2.5 hours, and asked Gandhiji to furnish bail for those 120 minutes. And he advised Gandhiji to take a bail for 120 minutes. Gandhiji refused, he denied, the judge released him without bail. And what was the consequence? The judge, he released Gandhiji without a bail. When the court reconvened, the judge said he would not deliver the judgment for several days. Meanwhile, he allowed Gandhiji to remain at liberty. And at that time, Gandhiji was remained at liberty, and the judge over there, he said that he is not going to deliver the judgment for several days. Rajendra Prasad, Brij Kishore Babu, Maulana Mazharul Haq and several other prominent lawyers had arrived from Bihar. They conferred with Gandhi what would they do if he was sentenced to prison. Gandhiji asked. Why? The senior lawyer replied, they had come to advise and help him. If he went to jail, there would be nobody to advise and they would go home. Then these people, they came to Gandhiji and they all were prominent lawyers. Prominent means important or renowned. Prominent, important. So, the people arrived from Bihar, and when they asked or when they met Gandhiji, Gandhiji asked them what would they do if Gandhiji is sentenced to prison. Then one of the senior lawyer replied why it all would happen when they all were there to advise him and to help him. What about the injustice to the sharecroppers? Gandhiji demanded. For that, Gandhiji asked them a question that what about the injustice that is happening to all those sharecroppers and the peasants? Gandhiji asked them. The lawyers withdrew to consult. Rajendra Prasad has recorded the upshot of their consultation. And when the lawyers, they were discussing all those things, Rajendra Prasad, he was noticing all those consultations, upshots of those consultations. They thought amongst themselves that Gandhiji was totally a stranger, and yet he was prepared to go to prison for the sake of the peasants if they, on the other hand, being not only residents of the adjoining district but also those who those who claimed to have served these peasants should go home, it would be shameful desertion. Then when they were doing all those consultation, then they thought and they just concluded, being an outsider from that district, Gandhiji was taking so much pain for all those sharecroppers, and those lawyers, being a resident of that place only, they are not doing anything for them. Then it was such a shameful desertion for them. They accordingly went back to Gandhi and told him they were ready to follow him into jail. And then they decided that wherever Gandhiji will go, whether it will be in jail or it will be somewhere else, in another district or another place, they would follow him. The battle of Champaran is won, he exclaimed. Then he took a piece of paper and divided the group into pairs and put down the order in which each pair was to quote arrest. Then when all those lawyers, they decided to follow Gandhiji, at that Mahatma Gandhiji exclaimed, and very proudly he said that the battle of Champaran is almost won, and he took a paper, wrote down few names, and then he said these are the names to whom the court can send them to jail. He wrote names in the pair. Several days later, Gandhiji received a written communication from the magistrate informing him that the lieutenant governor of the province had ordered the case to be dropped. Civil disobedience had triumphed the first time in modern India. Then after so many days, Gandhiji received a written communication from the magistrate from the court informing him that the lieutenant governor of that area, province means that area had just dropped the case, and now there will be no a case on Gandhiji for the civil disobedience, and in the modern India for the first time civil disobedience had triumphed. Triumph means victory. Triumph means victory. So civil disobedience, it got a victory in that area which was under British rules. Now this is the end of this session. I hope you all got this topic very clearly. Just go through with all these word meanings so that it can improve your quality of your answers. If there is any query, comment down. Thank you.